itself. So I'm Tryaksh Gupta, as Shubham mentioned. So I'm currently a master's student in mechanical engineering at University of Michigan. Also, I've done my bachelor's in mechanical engineering at IIT Roorkee itself in in a batch of 2020. So currently, I'm also a photographer at University of Michigan Photography Club. So I'm interested in various facets of photography, particularly nature, wildlife, and landscape. And most of the photographs that you will see in these uh, presentations are post-processed using Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop. So, so before we get started with the particularities of the photographs, so here are the common questions that that I encounter in Instagram chats or with some juniors, or even after the announcement of this workshop. So which camera lens is best for the wildlife photography? So this, I believe, is the best camera is the one you can afford at that point of time. So I'm gonna tell you my story for first year. So firstly, I couldn't afford the camera in first year itself, and secondly, so I was not sure like I want to get into photography. So in the first year, I joined photography section, frankly, to be to use equipments as well as like I was interested in kind of photography. So first equipment that I issued was a zoom lens and a D5300 Nikon, and then I started like capturing various birds around the campus, and I got like people appreciated those photographs, so I really got into the wildlife photography. So that was actually a beginning of getting into the bird photography and then eventually into wildlife. And secondly, which software do I use for post-processing pictures? Mostly I use Adobe Lightroom and sometimes Adobe Photoshop as well. Like if I need to remove, like color correct or remove some unwanted elements from the pictures. So, and how did I enter into the wildlife photography? As I mentioned in my question one, I entered into wildlife photography just because of photography section. So I really thank photography section who made me get into this beautiful art. So as I go along, I try to answer these questions in more detail. So first of all, what are the don'ts while in while? So as we are in DND mode, like as everyone must be aware of DND, do not disturb. So while doing a wildlife photography, these are the three don'ts that you must always keep in mind to not disturb the nature basically. So first is distance. You should maintain the distance with any animal or bird that you are photographing. Otherwise, you will end up disturbing them and you will not be able to capture them in natural habitat. And secondly, don't make too much noise around while in wild. So it can be like don't carry your Bluetooth speakers or don't talk too much in the wildlife. Just focus on wildlife photography when you are in jungles or so. Even in while being in campus, there are like beautiful birds around the campus, particularly the kingfishers and brown-headed burbot that I will show you in the presentation as well. So I think uh, whenever whenever you go close to them, they will just fly off, and if you make too much noise, they will fly off. So you need to uh, like walk around the campus, search for the spots, and particularly go in the morning at 6 a.m. around, depending upon which weather you are in. And like I used to go at different locations. So I used to found a brown burbot near photography section. There was a lawn, so I found it brown burbot over there, and a couple of locations like in front of main building in the morning. So there was a kingfisher flying around there. So you need to go and just not distracted by. And the third is distraction, obviously. So you need not to go into wildlife using your headphones because most of the animals that you will capture is like by hearing their calls and by hearing various noises by wildlife. So like even with a kingfisher, it makes a particular sound. So you don't need to be distracted using your headphones or talking on phone. This is a particular three rules of the like getting into wild. So yes, wild and free. So this was also one of the reason why I want to pursue wildlife photography in future as well. So there is a wealth of knowledge that is openly accessible in nature, and I just try capturing different wild species in their natural habitat, and I really get fascinated by this. So hopefully after this workshop, many of you will be encouraged to pursue this hobby as well. So it's very good, as I mentioned, like it's very good to capture wildlife in their natural habitat. As the first rule of don't say, like we should not make noise and you should maintain distance just because we need to capture wildlife in their natural habitat. So while capturing wildlife in natural habitat, it really gives you a perspective and knowledge, a lot of knowledge about animals. So as you see in this photograph, you can get a lot of insight about the behavior of an animal. So it's a spotted owl. You can see like it lives in a burrow in a tree, and like it was a time of evening, so it just got wake up and it's gonna stay all night like us engineers. So it really tells a lot about its actual behavior. That's a wealth of knowledge that is available in the nature. So let's talk something about composition. So as you see in this image, if many of you must be aware of the rule of thirds. If not, I'll explain you here. So in wildlife photography, in general as well, look for the composition both in vertical and horizontal direction. In this, the animal stays on the 1/3 of the left frame of the photograph, and as well as in the vertical direction. So what it really gives you is like the animal with its natural habitat and a good frame to be like it presents and it makes a photograph more presentable, and as well as it draws attention to a subject. So talking more about uh, lighting. Okay, so lighting is extremely important in wildlife photography. So it can be, there are a lot of shots that you can take based upon the lights, like one side of the head is lighted, another side is in the dark, or the entire background is dark, or you can play with golden lights. And the most beautiful art that I found is a golden hour. So golden hour is like a time like just after the sunrise and just before the sunset. So I really enjoy capturing during this time. So the picture that you see on the right side, it's captured during the sunset, and it's captured at Bharatpur National Park. So most of the pictures that you will see are from Bharatpur National Park, which is in Rajasthan, India. So I really, if you are interested in wildlife photography and you want to start with this thing, I really encourage you to go to Bharatpur, and it's very easy to go from Roorkee. You just need to like take a train, just a single train. I think it's LTT, maybe. Yeah. So you can take a train from Roorkee to Bharatpur directly. It just goes very near to the wildlife sanctuary. So yes, and the another element in this photograph is bouquets. So wildlife in this, like in the golden hour, you will be able to capture bouquets if you are around some water body. So here, as you see, my subject is a bird sitting on a branch of a tree, and like bouquets due to the water bodies, because during sunset and sunrise, like uh, the water bodies are lighted up with the sunlight, and which helps us to get bouquets from the water bodies. So this try to get those bouquets around when you are around water body during golden hours. So here again, let's talk about bouquet and composition here. And like this is one of my favorite photo, just because it was one of the photos that I clicked in my very first photo walk with one of my seniors. So this is click in front of our old photography section. It was in, I think, STC building near SAC or near Student Club. Yeah. So there are a couple of elements that must be noticed here. First of all is bokeh as usual. So as you see on the left side of the frame, there are a lot of bokehs. This is due to like there's a tree in the back frame and light is coming through the tree, and you will able to develop bokeh in this form. and secondly is framing about this picture. So as you see, like you have a background, you have a foreground. Foreground is very interesting, so you can basically include the foreground in the entire picture. So I'll show you the photograph in some other slide, that in which we are focusing only on the subject and we're not worried about the background because background is too much cluttered in that case. So we'll keep it plain in that case. Okay. So let's talk something about perspective. I think perspective is also one of the major thing in photography in general as well as in wildlife. For this photograph, I like I sat for around 2 hours for to capture this frame in the wild. So this was also captured during lockdown. Like I went into some fields. I was not able to go into some national parks because all of them were closed during the lockdown. So if you're passionate about something, you don't need any excuse. You can go anytime and anywhere. So it's safe to go in wild, obviously, during COVID, and rather than going into populated cities or clubs. So in this frame, I just waited for the second black buck that you see. The second black buck is behind the first one. So the second black buck, I just waited for it to come by and set up the frame such that I get a I get a good perspective, and I can make a illusion that this black buck has a two heads. So as you can see, like the the black buck standing in the behind seems to merge with the black buck standing in the front, and like the eyes of the first black buck seems to merge with the eyes of the second black buck. So I think perspective did justice to the frame as well, and it really shows the habitat of black buck. So this is another image talking about perspective. So like as I mentioned, sometimes you need to wait for the right moment, and this is one of those moments. So here we see symmetry as well as the layers, as well as the perspective. So I waited for this image as well for long, just for them to align themselves in zigzag pattern, as you see. So this is all about perspective in wildlife. Okay, so now this image as well show the animal behavior. So kingfisher, as by name we know, it catches fish, and it's like one of the favorite birds to spot for wildlife photographers. And this particularly bird is common kingfisher, but it's irony, like its name says common kingfisher, but it's not that common. It's found in Bharatpur as well. So it flies at one pace and it's too fast to capture fish, and like it takes a microseconds to capture, like it will consume this fish just after microseconds. So you need to wait for the right moment, and you might end up failing for the first time, like you have to take multiple attempts, and that's how you that's how things work in wildlife photography. You have to be very tolerant. So this is another fish catch. So this image also suggests us how patience and persistence can be a key for birds capturing their prey. So this one is a snake bird with a fish. So it's just this bird has a very special characteristics, like it will toss the fish off and then it will consume it, and you really get a microseconds to click those pictures. So I don't think so cameras should be constrained in that case, because I was able to capture the same photograph, not in that quality, but I was able to capture this same photograph using the equipments from photography section as well. So there should not be any constraint for the camera. So I'll give you one example. I have a friend Manhinder, so he also captures wildlife, and he uses point and shoot camera, just a point and shoot camera, and he really captures good photos, and he's much better than me. So he doesn't give an excuse of not having a good camera, and so do you not. So I was talking in the previous slide, like if the background is too much cluttered or if the background is not good, just go on and blur it. So how do you blur it? You need to look for the subject that's close to the camera, but the background should be far enough. In that case, you will be able to get a good shallow depth of field. And this particular common kingfisher, as I told, is my one of the favorite bird. So here my focus main is on the subject, and just avoid cluttering and distraction while capturing birds, because birds, like if we are doing a street photography, yeah, in street photography there are a lot of elements that need to be captured just to give the life to photo. But in case of bird photography, it's a contrast. Like you need to focus on your subject, and it's very important. Like you have to avoid cluttering to get so this clean photos. Imagine like having a lot of branches around this bird and lot of leaves. So that would have deteriorated this photograph a lot. Okay, so this one is the important one. Like you have in the wildlife photography, if you are capturing a bird or any animal, so you have to go to eye level of the subject to get the shallow depth of field. So as you see here, the foreground as well as the background has a has a kind of blurry nature, and that really gives a good life to this photo because my subject is in focus and I can just focus on my subject. This is where you go to eye level, and this really matters in case of wildlife photography while capturing lion or tigers. I haven't captured lion and tigers till now, but I'm hoping to do it within next 6 months. But this please keep this in mind. This you have to go to eye level while capturing photography, and for this you have to really make your clothes dirty. It really happens, like your shoes, your t-shirt and your pants are like they really get messed up, especially during rain. Okay, so still how? So this is also one of my favorite things to capture. As I mentioned, like I love the golden hour, like that is sunset time. So what I say that golden hour is sometimes we have to disconnect to reconnect with what matters. So as I mentioned in starting of my slide, there is a lot of wealth of knowledge that is available in the nature. You just have to relate it to your general life. So it's really a good quad in general life as well. Like sometimes you have to disconnect to reconnect with what matters. This really tells us about like being motivated and being focused on our goals, and to disconnect with all different things, and to connect with the thing that really matters. So how do we click this picture is like uh, you have to make your background like a low exposed one, and the so for that you need to increase the shutter speed. So I'm not going to cover the technicalities of the DSLR in this workshop, but you can anytime, like there are a lot of resources available on YouTube regarding shutter speed, ISO and f number. So what what we do in that case is just focus on our element in the subject and just increase the shutter speed a lot, maybe 1 by 66,000 or 1 by 8,000. In that case our foreground will get darkish, and you will you will still see the lights coming from the sun. That's how you get a silhouette. This is another silhouette. So this was captured during the lockdown. So I was utilizing that time during lockdown to capture some urban wildlife at that point of time. So this was the one that I captured on my terrace, and I waited for this photo a long and for many days just to see these monkeys playing around the sunset. This is again an example of silhouette. So as I mentioned, like lights plays a very important role in the wildlife. So as you can see in this frame, the sunlights are coming from the left direction, and it really gives you like a picture. It really gives a life to this picture. Like it seems it's a live picture because seems these birds are singing under the shower of sunlight. And there are the male cirrus crane and the female cirrus crane. Like it's the tallest flying bird in the world, and it's one of the most popular sighting at Bharatpur National Park. So this bird has a very special characteristics. If you like you are lucky enough to go to Bharatpur, I think you will be able to see this bird. So I really want like people who want to pursue wildlife photography, they should go to Bharatpur. It's really a good place to capture birds and different wildlife in their natural habitat. This is again a same bird. So this is particularly a courtship display. So this the bird on the left side is a female bird and the bird on the right side is a male bird. So particularly the male bird is trying to impress the female bird by performing a dance that we call a courtship display. And and this is one of the most like happy moments of like wildlife photography when you see animals doing courtship. I know it's bad to capture them during that time, so I just captured it before happening. So let's see, talk about reflections and symmetry. This is like this is also one of my favorite pictures because this was also captured in one of my first photo works in IIT Roorkee in the second semester, I think. Yeah. So this was as you are from IIT Roorkee, you might except for the first year ones, you might be knowing the place when we go to the RR cinemas. So there is a bridge that comes while going to the RR cinemas. I literally went beneath that bridge, and there's a lake beneath that bridge. I captured this photo over there, and you need to wait a lot. Like I was too motivated with wildlife photography at that point, so you have to wait a lot with these symmetries. And when there are water bodies around you, just try to get those symmetries with birds, with animals, different animals. It really gives a good frames, as you see. And this picture was exhibited at photography section during Srishti 2017, I think, yes. So the best thing about animal portrait is that not like human portrait, so they will not ask you for photos. Like you click those photos and they will not ask you for photos. It's your own. So that's the best thing about the animal portrait. You like in case that's not the case with human portraits. You need to post process them and give them back. So just try to capture those animal portraits. Don't try to go close to them, but if you manage to like go close to them without disturbing them, then you will be able to capture animal portrait. Like you need to learn some techniques about going very close to the animals. So one of the techniques that I follow is stay low. Like I stay low when I go like I want to go to like I want to go to near to animals, but try avoiding going near. Try to take a zoom lens and maintain some distance with these animals so that you can capture their natural behavior. Otherwise, they will look terrified if you go near to them. And this one was captured during a trek in Himalayas. So this is also one of the pictures. Like it's very cute picture, I think. So it's my wallpaper as well currently. So this was a wild dog. Like it was this dog actually guided us to the actual destination, and you will see a lot of these kind of dogs while you go for a trek in Himalayas and just enjoy your time at IIT Roorkee. You should definitely go to any trek if you are managed to get college this year as well. So just try to go to treks around in January and February. You will see a lot of such dogs roaming there, and if you offer them food, they will just guide you through various base camps and locations. So I would thank you. And this picture is the like, best one I've clicked till now because this was published in magazine as well during Srishti 2017 exhibition. And this is also from Bharatpur. And this is one of the pictures like that I captured using photography sections camera. So that's the best part. You don't need to buy your own camera to start with. So thank you, and I would really appreciate the questions.
Yeah, everyone, you can type your questions in the chat. We'll take them. Okay. Yeah. Um, Guys, you can type your questions in the chat. I hope it is. Yeah, there's one question. Yeah, there's a question from Akshat Bhatnagar. In wildlife, do we use fishing or hunting techniques for photo captures?
Uh, Akshat, I'm not sure if I understand your question, like fishing or hunting techniques. I'm afraid of it. Can you explain your question? Like, you can go on mute and unmute yourself and go.
Wait a second, I'll give him. Yeah.
You can unmute yourself, Akshat. It's kind of interactive session. Now, I'm just a senior of your college. Just interact with me like normal chapo time. Although I can't offer you chapo at this point of time.
Mm. Yeah, Akshat, yeah.
So I was asking like, do you just stand at a position for a photo, like
Oh, you
frame
meant like,
for any photo to
oh,
capture,
you
or
mean,
you just
sorry,
punch
your
for
voice is
any
breaking actually.
frames? Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, so what I understood from your question is like,
Do you just
are you
stand at
stand there?
location?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you stand at one location like fishing or you just roam around? Like it's a combination of both. Like if you see anything happening in the wild, like if you see any birds doing some action, you just stand at the place and wait for the right moments to capture the best moments. And if you're not finding anything good around, you have to obviously hunt different locations to get good frames. So I'll give you an example of Bharatpur National Park. So I don't remember exactly how much big it is. Like it's around 11 kilometers square radius. So it's a quite big park. So you can't just stand at the like at one place and expect a lot of species there. So if you go there, you have to capture different spots. There will be a lot of people guiding you there, and there is a particular spot where you see snake bird. There is a particular spot where you see the Sarus crane, the one that I show you, the tallest bird, and there is a location where you see different raptors and ducks, different type of ducks. Like so, you have to go to the different locations to capture them, but if you are capturing different action and if you are capturing different behavior of their animal, you need to sit over there for some time. Like the kingfisher photo that I show you, the photo with a fish in its mouth. So it took really long to capture that. Like I have to sit for around 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours to capture that photo, and sometimes you have to wait to capture those uh, actions. I hope I like. Does it answer your question, Akshat? Okay, so next question. Do you have any recommendation for the online courses to learn more about the basics of photography? Or would you just play with the camera without doing? Okay, Pallavi, so in my case, what I did was I didn't go through much tutorials to learn the basics. I just like particularly for the wildlife photography, I think you should really go onto the field and just try different stuff. You have to play with the camera. Like it's really very, it's not a particularly theoretical thing. It's really practical thing. You have to go on the field and understand the nature and just take care in the mind of the three don'ts that I have explained you. Like don't disturb the wildlife, don't go too close, and just makes stay away. Like don't disturb them basically. That's the point that should be kept in mind while in wildlife. If you don't disturb them, then you will be able to capture them in their natural habitat. Otherwise they will feel terrified and most of the birds will just fly away. So best part, like best technique to stay and not disturb them and stay close as well is to go low, like either sit at one place or just go low, like by bending or just you can go close to the animals by being low. I think that answers your question. What are the best settings for silhouette photographs during sunset? Okay, so this is a good question. Like as I explained, the best settings are like you need to increase your shutter speed as much as you can. So it depends on the lighting as well, what kind of lighting you are in. And I really believe you don't need a high ISO number for that. So ISO number is, if to clear everyone, it's a light sensitivity number in a camera. So I try to keep it as low as possible, but when I'm capturing a action, so when I'm capturing an action, basically action photography, kind of like if a bird is capturing a prey or a monkey is jumping or anything, so then I have to increase my shutter speed to 1 by 8,000 and then move my ISO number up because light will go low. I can't compromise on shutter speed basically. So in wildlife photography, you don't compromise on shutter speed. You in the end you can get a grainy photo with high ISO number, but like getting a grainy photo with a high ISO number is much better than getting a blur photo like with low shutter speed. So to answer your question for silhouette photographs, you need to keep your shutter speed as high as possible as per the lightings and just focus on your subject. Like focus on your subject and try to increase the shutter speed. Yes. And what more should we use a camera? Is it feasible? Adjust settings every time in manual mode while shifting. Yes, I use manual mode while capturing wildlife. So I don't recommend manual focusing mode. So you should you should use auto focusing mode, and I do use manual mode for all other settings. Like I adjust my f number, shutter speed, and ISO every time while capturing a photo. That at times become overwhelming, and it's tough to adjust the settings, but you have to because lights will not be same. Like there might be some birds that are hidden in branches, or there might be some birds which are well in sunlight, or birds look change their location very quickly. Like you have to change the camera settings every time based upon the lightings that are being projected on the birds. So it's very much dependent on your lightings. So you have to use the autofocus mode for sure, but camera should be in manual mode and try to click pictures in RAW so that if you're not able to adjust, so if you're not able to adjust the camera, you can just edit those photographs later on. And that's why I try to shoot in raw format. It really conserve all details of your photographs. So those were some very good questions, I think. And any other question, I would really
Yeah,
appreciate.
there was a question from my side as well. So yeah, we have heard things like whenever you go for wildlife photography, so you should have a decent knowledge about whatever you are photographing. Like if there's any bird, so you should know the behavior of that bird or something. Like, is it necessary? Like in your perspective, like
Yes, It's a very good question. So I think it's very important. Like if like when I used to go to Bharatpur National Park, or uh, I went to so I I used to study all the species over there. Like there are certain very famous species. So I have a friend called Suyog Bhore. I think you should follow him on Instagram as well. He's he's really a excellent photographer. So he really shared a lot of knowledge of his birds and their behavior with me. So I think whenever you go to a national park, so there will be some species that are particularly very famous for that particularly national park. For example, like for Bharatpur that I gave example of, Sarus crane is very famous. Common kingfishers are found out, and like there are a lot of ducks. So you need to know their behavior, like the kind of habitat they are found in, the kind of peculiar or the particular behavior that they possess. So it will really help you to capture good photographs, because if you want to capture a bird that's almost like about to fly, it will make some action. So if you consider a kingfisher, if you want to capture it while flying, it will make some action. So I told you like kingfisher will hover. Hover means like it will stay at one place above a lake, and then it will just stay at that place, like a drone. It really seems like a drone. If you see a pied kingfisher, it seems like a drone hovering at above the lake. So at that point of time, it will stay at one position. You can capture it while flying. So that's that is why like knowing the behavior of birds and animals is really important, and particularly you don't disturb them. So it really helps capturing those birds very, and even the wildlife very beautifully. So in case of big cats, lions, and tigers, so you need to learn their behavior because they might be very dangerous at times. And various net geographers, they are not protected. Like even in when they capture polar bears in Antarctica, I was reading some blog. So they are not protected. Basically, they don't have any shooters around, or they are not protected by any naturalist. So basically, they know the behavior of the animals, and not to disturb them, and to make them comfortable so that they are not violent at times. So these things become very important when you're capturing big cats like tigers and lions. So that was a good question. I think that answers the question, Shubham.
Yeah, thank you, Tryaksh.